How's it going, YouTube? Come watching today with another video, and today, guys, what the video is going to be where to Handtrap Tier 2 and Rogue. We did talk about this a little bit because I did want to make sure that we're touching on the decks that you might see here and there, because you don't want to play against one of these decks and be like, oh my god, what do I do against this? Because it happens sometimes, right? Like, sometimes I sit down and it's Galaxy Eyes, and you're like, okay, I guess we like Ash Expedition, so it's definitely very interesting whenever you play against decks that you don't really know what's going on. So hopefully we touch on a couple of those today, just so you're not super confused when you play against it in the future. A couple of them are going to be, of course, just like your standard tier 2, but there's going to be a couple oddballs in there, hopefully, to really be able to get you some extra information. So, if you haven't already checked out my sponsors over on Gem, Grimoire, Imperium, Dragonshield, or Cloud, definitely go ahead and do so down in the description below. And also, we have a brand new sponsor to the channel. Thank you so much for joining the team, ChainLink. ChainLink is a fantastic sponsor. Very great people over there, too. ChainLink actually came up to me at the giveaway in Indianapolis for the meet and greet, and then donated a lot of different items for the meet and greet, and that was super cool. Got to talking, and now they are a sponsor of the channel. So I appreciate you. Thank you for joining the team. Really great work on all your product, and I'm really glad to be repping you. So I hope that everyone really goes ahead and checks out ChainLink as well. And without further ado, let's hop right on in and to the Where to Handtrap. So the first deck that we're going to cover today is going to be Earth Machine. Now, this is a deck that we've definitely seen before. Skill Drain Turbo is definitely one of them that we've seen, or the Verniself, like really combo builds. But depending on which one you play against, of course, they're all pretty much the same. But you do want to have things like Droll and Nib. Both these cards are very strong. The number one spot in this deck to just hit Ash, Mourner, Veiler, Imperm, whatever you have, just hit Dozer. Like 100% just hit Dozer. Like if there's only one spot I could tell you to hand trap this deck, it's literally Dozer. Crow on Citadel is going to be really important too. You don't really want the Regeki coming out of nowhere again. We've seen so many different decks like this in the past, especially like Print Kid, where unironically Regeki's a very good card. So, just don't really want to see this coming back. Of course, if they have the, I think it's the Overdrive as a trap to go ahead and like put it back, then I guess they have that, but they still have to get back to it. But I'd rather just go ahead and Crow this whenever it's going to be a problem. And then also Bell or Ash on the Verniselfs is really important, especially the Duck. The Duck is the craziest one, so you definitely want to go ahead and Bell or Ash this. It does include the effect 2 special summon from the grave, so you can Bell this as well, which is very cool. Talking more about Gold Pride Punk. Now, this is another deck where if there's only one spot that I can tell you to hand trap, it's definitely just Ash and Carp. Carp is going to go ahead and summon out a 3, so like an Almond from the deck, and then also a Deer Note. So this is the one that you always want to Ash. They're going to summon out this one and then go into this. So you want to be able to Veiler or Imperm this so they can't summon Carp. But if you have Ash, you just let them summon Carp, tribute for cost, and then Ash Carp, and it's just GG from there, which is pretty crazy. Ash and Carp is always really strong. Nibiru is also pretty fine because they don't put up like negation, at least not early on. And then Veiler or Imperm on the level 3 here, which is really important. You can also hold the Imperm for the Rollerballer or the Leon if you really feel like one of these are going to be a problem. The Pinballer is pretty crazy. The Amazing Dragon also allows you to just kind of like push cards back to hand. So whichever one you're more fearful of, you can always go ahead and just hold Imperm to like stop one. They could have the Trap that allows them to special summon and pop a card, which is also very strong after you like Imperm something. But if you are just like really worried about it, you can always hold it. But most of the time you're just going to Imperm or Veiler on this one right here. And then always just Ash the Carp. It's really strong. Talking about DragonLink, one of the really nice interactions that I do quite often, and this is one that I've done at a regional before, and like people definitely just didn't know it because it was still relatively new with the location thing. If they tribute Heretic Seal for cost to bounce, and then you chain a Bishal or a Crow to the Heretic Seal to banish it, they cannot summon from deck. So it's a really important interaction because, of course, they get the bounce, but like, who really cares at that point, right? They're not getting to summon. So that's really nice. Ash onto Ravine is going to be your best spot because your opponent just like loses one from their hand. You Ash, this is a lot of value. They don't get the things like Lubellion. They can't send the Abza Router. If they open with Chaos Space, the one of, then of course just Ash it. But otherwise, you're just always waiting for Ravine. Lancia is really solid, especially against their follow-up, or if they're trying to like crack your board when they're playing. Lancia is real good, but overall Droll is going to be your best bet here. Valor Imperm onto Romulus is really strong. If they open up Safer and have Valor manned, it's probably coming down on the Safer because I just don't want my opponent to get to the Collapse Serpents. But at the same time, waiting for Romulus is still pretty correct because you just don't want your opponent to get to Ravine. Keeping them away from the Tracer is really important. And then belling any of the Bestial effects, of course, so you don't lose other cards out of your graveyard. RDA, this is a really interesting one because I've had to play against it several times now. This deck is really strong for what it is, and I was really surprised by that when I first started playing against it. You really want to Ash the Soul Resonator because you don't want your opponent to get to Bone Archfiend. That card's kind of crazy if you've never read it before. It's pretty good. It's like one hell of an extender, let me tell you. The Crow or the Bestial here on the Red Rising target, which will be the Crimson Resonator, is going to be the best thing that you can do as well because the Red Rising is the whole point of their combo to go ahead and target the Crimson Resonator to summon 2 more from deck. So this is like the key interaction that you need to stop. So you go Red Rising effect and you chain Imper, Mourner, Valor, Bell, whatever you have. And then if you have neither of those, then you just activate Crow or a Bestial on the Crimson, and that's going to hopefully stop their turn right there. This is such a crucial point in the combo that you just have to stop. But otherwise, Ash on Soul Resonator is really important because, again, you don't want your opponent to get the Bone Archfiend. And then Droll is just really strong into this matchup because they do quite the bit of searching. So that's going to be really important to know. The next one up here is going to be PK Horus. So this is a really interesting one. Bell onto the Torn Scales effect in the graveyard to reborn itself is really important, especially if they're also playing the adventure cards because they can't normal summon the Torn Scales, so they're going to try to reborn it. So if you can go ahead and Bell the effect of Torn Scale coming back, or the Fog Blade trying to reborn something, it's going to be pretty crucial. Nibiru is always really solid against this deck because they really don't put him negation unless they have like the Griffin out from the Adventure Engine or if they have an Appaloosa. But if you do think that Appaloosa is about to come down, throw the rock immediately and you should be in a really good position. Ash on Imseti is going to be really important too, of course, not allowing your opponent to get too much value, getting the extra draw, getting to the Sark, which of course gets rid of cards in their hand that sometimes they really don't want in their hands. DD Crow and the Bestial here are going to be really important against banishing the Torn Scale on Torn Scale effect in the graveyard. You can always go ahead and banish it early on the Ancient Cloak if you think that they really need the extender for like the Silent Boots, but at the same time, banishing the Torn Scale is going to be really important here too. Keep your opponent away from resources. Of course, that does open your opponent up to being able to go Leviair back, but you just have to make sure that you're planning ahead for that too. Valor, Mourner, Imperm, you can also use Ash if you really want to, if they don't open up the Imseti. On Rusty is still going to be the best interaction point here because you want to make sure the Rusty just doesn't activate. Being able to set one and send one's really strong. So if they don't go Imseti, you're going to use whatever you have just on the Rusty. It's going to be really important here. Talking about Hero, now this deck can randomly just like kill you from putting up like a DP, a Dark Law, you know, just like all the crazy stuff that they have, Dark Angel. Using the Bell here on Cross Crusader is really nice too because you don't allow your opponent a lot of value off that. Using Ash on Fusion Destiny or a Hero Lives, whichever one comes down first, honestly, is fine. You can also use Ash Blossom onto the Increase to prevent the access from Vion, which is really nice. Using DD Crow or a Bestial on the Dark Angel lock, if you're really afraid of this, is really important. There's actually a really cool interaction too, because the Dark Angel only negates whatever is on res, so you can like droplet send the Dark Angel, which is really nice too. But using anything to banish it is really important, and then also just banishing DP, of course. We don't want to see this card keep recurring, which is really annoying. You can use Valor, Mourner, Imperm onto the Vion, which is really strong, being able to stop the Foolish Burial and the Banish for Poly. Poly is a really important part of their combo too, being able to get into the Sunriser or other things too in the deck that are just going to go and extend their combos realistically. Being able to just blank this card, make sure that it can't go off is really nice. But for Hero, Droll and then Nibiru just ends the turn all the time. Plunder Patrol, this is actually really interesting because of the fact that a lot of people I feel like still don't know how to play against this deck. I've been seeing that quite often and it's really interesting. Droll is pretty strong. You can use Bell on the effect of the Sea Guide or the Enchantress. Most builds are the Brave builds, but some aren't. So if you don't really see like Enchantress or anything, you can just hit the Sea Guide. But at the same time, it's still really important to like Bell the Enchantress if you do see it. Ash on Whitebeard is fine because it denies them the extender. But like if you just hold Ash for the ship, you're actually just winning the game. Because if they go like Liss and they like pass to you, and then you summon something, they go list negate, and then you just ash the list. A lot of times you're probably just winning because ashing the ships is just an FTK. A lot of people just start wasting hand traps really fast, but if you just like let them summon the ship and then just ash the ship, there's not a whole lot they can do because all the ships can be ashed. Then also if your opponent's going to go ahead and summon out the Yord, Valor, Mortar, and Perm still really strong too, to really be able to deny your opponent access to this card and be able to like put it back and get themselves more extenders. Shutting off Yord is always going to be really nice. Just know that if you do shut it off and they leave it on board, whenever you special into it, there's going to be another effect that kicks off there too. So have another plan for that as well. Exo, I'm not really going to go over this too much. Nibiru cooks this deck. Ash on Martha is going to be an FTK. If you have Imperm, Mourner, or Valor, use it on Caspitel so they can't search Martha. And then also on Summon of Caspitel, if they use Exosister monsters, on Summon, there's a mandatory effect, so you can go ahead and just Ghost Ogre the card and get it off the board. So for hire, this is one that we've seen on and off. You want to go ahead and just either Crow the Rex target or just Bell Rex effect because you don't want your opponent to be able to summon and then get the whole draw effects going. Droll, this deck just says search draw like crazy, so this card will just end their turn. Ash on Rookie is really important because you just want to cut off the entire access of the For Hire engine. If they just have the Rinnet cards, you're literally not playing the game. So Ash on the Rookie here is going to be really important. Then Valor, Mortar, Imperm onto Hugin to go ahead and stop the Ada Fountain because we know we don't want that going off either. Next up here is Dino. I've been asked a lot about this. I don't know how much this actually comes up, but if you do end up playing against this, just make sure that you Crow the Miscellaneous Source or just Ash the Miscellaneous Source effect. This is the FTK. They can drop Miscellaneous, but if it gets Ash or Crowed out of grave, they just immediately lose the game. So this is something to know. If they're on like the Scrap build, then you're going to want Nibiru, but usually Droll will do enough here as well. If you're worried about like what their end board could be, just hold the Imperm for Dolka, so it won't be that bad. Yeah, you also can Imperm the Scrap Link too. But at the same point, Imperming Dolka is also fine if you want to hold it, and then just get rid of the Miscellaneous Source and you're cooking that matchup. Infernoble, now this one's going to be more of a conversation because there are so many lines right now and there's so many builds that it's really hard to specifically pinpoint a few specific places in this deck. So we're going to talk about this. Droll is very good into this matchup. You can do quite a few things through Droll, but at the same time, it cuts off quite a bit. There are a lot of builds right now playing like the Sinful Spoils, which is really important to get into Renaud. You can go ahead and turn off the Isolde, but a lot of times the Isolde is just going to be the bait for Imperm. So like, it's fine and you can, but like, it's not always the best. You can go ahead and hit the Ricardetto, which is pretty solid because they get the Reborn, they get to go into different synchros, which you really don't want to see happen. Usually, whenever I have a Valor and Imperm, if I see a Renaud come down, I'm probably hitting the Renaud or the Ricardetto. I'm going to hit one of the two, probably not Isolde, because Isolde usually is just checking for the Imperm, and they're also just trying to summon the Ricardetto or the Renaud. So if you can go ahead and just Imperm this, or Valor, either of these main deck monsters, usually you're going to be in a very good position. Now, you can Ash Museum, which is fine. Pay 12 and then get Ash is always a good feeling, right? But at the same time, you might want to consider just hitting Spoils. You can either hit the Spoils or you can hit the original Sin as well, either or, just because they're going to be able to get to the Renaud, which can then go ahead and add back whatever they pitch if there was like a equip spell, right? So definitely something to think about, but there's a couple really crucial points, but just know that like usually Isolde is just like bad bait for like an Imperm, but like the Ricardetto and the Renaud are usually fine. And then Ashing Museum or Spoils or the original Sin is usually fine. Again, it's a hard matchup to play against, especially with like Angel Ring if they get the whole board down. This is why you need like the Tribute Fiends. But at the same time, this is going to be a pretty accurate spot here to go ahead and just hand trap and at least get the most value. I do hope that you enjoyed today's video because, of course, going over a lot of the obscure matchups is really important so you know what to do when they happen. But we're almost at 20,000 subscribers, so definitely go ahead and subscribe. 338 away. We're almost there, team. We're almost there. I'm so excited. If you haven't checked my Discord, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, or my Medify page, definitely go ahead and check them all out down in the description below. Doing $20 Medify sessions for the rest of November, and I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.